Why Afrobeats had to stop ignoring female artists. Guys, it's taken so long for this industry to pay attention to female artists. And why is that? You know, they're just not enough. You think about the many, and I mean many Afrobeats artists that there are right now. Not even it just seems like there are literally only three females, five females that you could just like name at the top of your head that are hot right now. Arya Star, Thames, Tiwa Savage, Tenny, uh, Yemi Alade. You could say YJ also. But there's just really, no, I mean, of course, there are more other ones, especially like even newcomers that we're hearing on Spotify. But they're just not getting the attention that their male counterparts are getting. And I really want to take it back to the early days of Afrobeats. In the early 2000s, there was Sasha, right? There was Sasha, and she was part of Storm Records, and it was kind of, they were doing this whole like sort of like, the Rough Riders, and they had Eve or Nicki Minaj and Young Money type thing. She was like the female one that they were like not really investing any money into, but she was part of the squad, that kind of thing. But really, there really has not been much attention to female artists. If you ask me, I just feel as though as much as the men, their sound was developing quickly, I don't think that there was enough development going into the female sound. Because at the time, I want to say around from the early days until like maybe 2012. No, you know what? I would even go as far to say until Tenny the Entertainer. They all had this very similar sound that just wasn't really unique or interesting. They all sort of sounded the same. And they weren't really doing anything unique or interesting. But when I spoken to some of my music executive friends in the industry, I'm going to have to, When I've spoken to some of my friends in the industry, they've just told me quite simply the issue was financing. And the lack of, so let me break it down, right? We know that female artists are extremely lucrative, even more so than male artists to some extent, right? But it takes a lot of capital to put into a female artist. First of all, there's hair, there's makeup, there's time of doing the hair and makeup, then there's fashion. There's so many different components that it takes into, a female artist to really make her pop, to really put her on a pedestal. And because Afrobeats was so grassroots, it's kind of like with a male artist, just pick them up and go, and they can start performing. They don't even need to. Maybe they don't. Even, I'm not joking. They don't even have a shower or something. I'm joking. Obviously, they have showers, but they don't need to like do much. Just give them a trim. It costs like how much to get a haircut? 1,000 naira back then. Maybe 2,000. It doesn't take much to set up an Afrobeats male artist. The startup cost is low, and so a lot of executives just was dumping money into the men. But what is very obvious and very clear, when you think about it on a worldwide scale, female artists are kind of more lucrative than male artists. If you just look at it, the US, for example, think about the Beyoncés, the Nicki Minaj's, the Cardi B's, Beyonce, Nicki, Cardi, the Taylor Swift's, the so many people, Rihanna's, Ariana Grande. I could name so many female artists that are at the top of maybe the top of the world, right? The most famous. And so if I named 10 female artists, I could only name 10 men, I could only name like 3 men or 4 men that are their equal in a way. And when I say equal, I don't mean by streams. I think, streams, it's all fair game. But when you think about their impact and their fandom and their superstardom and the attention that they get either in the media, on social media, or from just consumers in general, female talent is just so much more lucrative, right? So if I named all these Beyonce's, Cardi B's, Nicki Minaj's, all of them, the only when it comes to men, the only people that are on that same level, the only people is probably Justin Bieber, uh, Drake, and Kanye West. And these are like old school, like Kanye is old school. Kanye is not even because his music or he's necessarily hot right now. It's not because his music is hot right now. We didn't even hear the last album. It's because Kanye West is like a car crash. So I don't even know if he counts. Kanye West is like a car crash, right? You just have to watch what he does because he has mastered capturing our attention. But when it comes to everybody else, yes, okay, I talked about some more artists that were like super big. Maybe these people are more just like, okay, they were big maybe three plus years ago, right? Even if you look at today, the people that are hot right now, the Meg Thee Stallions, some of these new guys, City Girls, they still like, yeah, you look at them, you look at Saweetie, and okay, the only equivalent I could think of is probably the baby, but they're still gonna get more attention. They're still gonna get more attention simply because they're women and simply because they're more physically attractive. And they're marketed and they're packaged in a way that makes you want to look at them. When it comes to Kanye West, the only reason you look is because when he tweets, it's like a car crash. So my point here is just simply that female talent is just so much more lucrative than male talent because female talent just isn't only impactful in the music, but it transcends into different industries, which creates other opportunities. I mean, you think about fashion, you think about music, fashion, you think about hair and makeup, the beauty industry in general. There's so many intersections or opportunities that female artists bring. And so I say all this to say, yes, the startup cost is expensive investing in female artists, but it's so much more lucrative to invest in female artists. So I think that when it comes to Afrobeats, yeah, sure, in the early days, they couldn't afford to invest in these artists, but they had to catch up. But once the money started coming in, it made sense to start investing in female artists. So, let me take it back. I mentioned Sasha. Did I mention her? There was Sasha. There was Sasha in the early 2000s. And you can see, I mean, look, when it comes to the hair and makeup, it's not what we're getting today, even for that time, right? And this is not going to sell. This is not going to sell because you either have the packaging or you don't have it. And so she didn't. So the only real people that really started coming out and had the packaging, I would say was the days of Tiwa Savage and Yemi Alade. They came out and they had the packaging. And this is when we started seeing more attention go into Afrobeats female artists. But the complaint that I had, and this is not, the complaint I had whenever I heard Afrobeats female artists is they all kind of sounded the same. They all kind of did the same sound that wasn't, I just didn't like, I don't think people really liked the sound. It wasn't as commercial as the male sound. Because as much as you could say, yes, all Afrobeats artists still sound the same anyway, you could say that. But when it came down to it, Davido and Wizkid don't sound the same. So the top players in the game, D'banj at the time was hot. They don't sound the same. And so that's what it was. But the female artists, it's like they figure out one thing and everybody copies it. And it wasn't commercial or as strong as the male equivalent. But Tiwa Savage, because she had the packaging and the investment from Don Jazzy, because she had all of those things, I do believe that is the reason that there was attention paid to her. Because when it comes down to it, it's this whole music industry, it's way more than, oh gosh. Jesus. when it comes down to it, this whole music industry, it's way more than just your packaging. It's way more than just, it's way more than just your sound. It's way more than just your music. It's about your packaging. That's really what the industry is about today. And Tiwa Savage had the packaging. So she got attention. Yemi Alade is more successful across Africa. She had a really amazing song, incredible song, Johnny. Incredible song, and that really pushed her, and she's still doing very well in Africa. Funny enough, she's doing better in Africa than she's doing in Nigeria. But her and Tiwa kind of paved the way for these new guys, for us to see, look, we can package these artists, and we can pay attention to female artists. There's talent there. But I have to say, I want to give credit to Tenny the Entertainer. That's who I want to give credit to, because when it comes to actually creating a sound that is mainstream and that sounds just as good, if not better than their male counterparts, it was Tenny the Entertainer. And that's why, despite, her not being a traditional beauty, and not even just that, even in her style, despite all of that, she was still successful. But ironically, because of her style, this is why she was successful. And let me break that down. She talked about in an interview not wearing makeup and not liking to wear makeup. And I talked about earlier how having hair and makeup, that whole system made it more expensive to invest in a female artist. But Tenny the Entertainer came here and said, I'm not going to wear makeup. I'm not going to do any of that. So her startup cost was easier. Was more, it was easier. And then in addition to that, she had this sound that she was able to hit higher notes than any of her male counterparts. She had a similar sound to them, but she hit higher notes. And that's what got her the attention. In addition to that, she sang from a place of authenticity. She showcased who she really was. And these are part of the components that made her lovable. Now, is she marketable in terms of her aesthetics? She is marketable in Nigeria, but she doesn't have the international appeal beyond Nigeria. And then there was Tems. And let me tell you something about Tems. The moment I heard her song, Try Me, I knew that she was going to be a world-class superstar. I say this all the time. If I tell you someone's going to be hot, they're going to be hot. I predicted Justin Bieber. This is Justin Bieber. I predicted Justin Bieber in 2009 when I first heard his first single. What's his first single? One Time. I predicted Drake in his mixtape era before he even had a single, a solo, an album out, before he was even signed. I predicted a lot of people. Nicki Minaj. I can list so many people I've predicted just by hearing the sound. I just have an ear for a commercial sound, and I just know what's gonna be hot. I heard Tems, and I knew that she was going to be an international star. She had the sound that was so unique and commercial at the same time, and she was going to be a superstar. And look what has happened with Tems today. She's getting attention from everyone and everywhere. Everyone and everywhere is paying attention to Tems. And she's the exemplifier of, okay, she had a sound. She was pulling from the same creative space as a Tenny the Entertainer in terms of being authentic, having a unique sound, doing all those things. But the difference is, because she has this feminine look, and because she's packaged in a more feminine way, and she's more packaged, she wears makeup, all these things, she's closer to a traditional beauty. This is why she became successful internationally faster, because when it comes down to it, music is especially in the 2022, music is not about your sound. When music was about your sound, that's probably in the 50s, in the 60s, when people were listening to you on the radio. As soon as television came, people care about what you look like. And so because her look is more commercial than Tenny's, she has been pushed in a way internationally that it has been incredible. I mean, Disney's working with her, Beyonce worked with her, Future, Drake. She's got so many collaborations. She has more collaborations than, or more prestigious collaborations than the biggest guys in the industry, the WizKids, the Burna Boys, and all of them. But there's another component to this that I haven't really addressed, and it's sexism. The fact that people haven't given her, like in Nigeria, I just don't think that people have given her her accolades. And this is actually another reason why I think it took a while for female artists to blow in Nigeria, because of sexism. And there's this way that men in all industries like to dim women's lights, like to prevent women from becoming successful. And I think when it came down to it, just the level of success Tems received instantly from the international audience kind of washes that all away and shows even the men, look, we're in this together. It's like Obama says, you can't not educate 50% of your population. That's gonna regress your country. So as that applies in education and industry, that applies in music. You can't prevent 50% of your population, all females, from becoming successful musicians, because if you do that, Afrobeats is not going to grow to its full capability and capacity and potential. And because of this, we see Tems, who is getting more attention, right? More collaborations than the rest of these people. It's something to pay attention to. And it became very obvious that we could no longer ignore female talent. Now there's Ira Star. Now, this is another one. As soon as I saw her, I knew she was going to be big. And with her, I don't think it's her sound. It goes back to what I said earlier. Packaging in this modern era is more important than the music. You know, funny enough, Ira has a very similar sound to Tems, but it's not as unique. But it's still commercial enough. And it goes back to what I said earlier. Once one person does something, everybody kind of copies it. But I'm not going to dog her and compare her to Tems, because Ira has the packaging that it takes to become the Rihanna of Africa. And I can predict, you're going to hear it from me right now, that Ira Star is going to be, she's going to be bigger than Burna Boy, that's for sure. 100%. But not only is she going to be bigger than Burna Boy, I think that she's going to be a huge star in the US. I absolutely believe that. And it's just refreshing to see her success. It's refreshing to see this new wave of Afrobeats musicians, especially coming out of Maven Music, Don Jazzy, because he's the one that packaged Tiwa Savage. He's the one that invested in the female talent and the packaging of a female talent first with Tiwa Savage, and how lucrative and successful that has become. He's now passing it on to a younger person and capturing it at the right age. That's another thing, right? Because back in the day, these guys were coming out when they were 26, 27. That's kind of old in music, you know. But okay, obviously WizKid came out when he was way younger than that. David O2 way younger. But before them, the D'banjs were coming out in their mid-20s, which was kind of old. Tiwa Savage was coming out, I think she was like 30 when she came out. That's quite old, especially so the female artists were coming out later. Capturing it when they're still teenagers is the most important thing you could do, because that's when, because music is a young game. It's a young game. And that's what Ira Star has over Tems, is probably her age. But not to compare them or anything or put them against each other, because I think that the two of them can thrive and be the leaders of the Afrobeats movement in the next 2 years. I see the two of them really dominating, and I see Ira Star growing really quickly. You know, she just did a collaboration with Kelly Rowland. I really believe that she's going to be a huge, huge talent. You heard it here. You know, I predicted Rema too when I heard his first single. You know, I predicted him too. But I think Ira Star is the one. All in all, I have to say, that it is important to invest in female talent. And it is important that sexism and all the other components that have prevented female talent coming out of Nigeria from thriving is rectified. And I really do see Afrobeats going to new heights, going to new levels because of this female talent. And because of the males too. Don't get it twisted. Like the male talent are doing incredible things in the industry, and may they continue to do that. I don't know, this is a little juicy, but talking more about the sexism component, it reminds me when, obviously from that song that Thames had with Essence, with Wizkid and Justin Bieber came on the track. Notice how when Justin Bieber came on the track, nobody was paying attention. Like, I'm talking about internationally, right? People weren't really paying attention to Wizkid from that song, even though it was his song. It was Thames that everyone was paying attention to. It was Thames. I think Kanye called that song the best song ever. It was Thames that people were paying attention to. And it goes back to my point. People pay more attention to women. Whether there are pros and cons to it, but people pay more attention. And if you ask me, I just feel like that rubbed Wizkid some kind of way. And the reason I say that is because when he was in O2, when he was performing in O2, man, maybe but you guys have watched what happened in O2, and it was kind of weird the way like he was trying to dance with her and stuff in front of the camera to kind of like, man, I don't even know if I want to get into this, but let me just do it anyway. Is this way of like, I feel like Nigerian men have this way of trying to be like, women can't excel in life. Women can't excel in life if without a man, or without either sleeping with a man or having a rich father or whatever. There's this mentality in Nigeria that women can't progress without a man. And the funny thing is, like, I thought it was interesting the way that he rubbed on her was kind of him insinuating that he had slept with her, and the way she pushed him off, like, don't try and discredit me, but I feel like that's where he was going, and he got a lot of backlash on social media for doing that. But I thought it was interesting he did that. It was, to me, the way I saw it, like, a lot of people internationally, they might not have seen that as anything, but the way I saw it was he was trying to say, I'm the one that put her here. I'm the one that put her on. I put her on my song. And that was interesting to me because she's getting way more attention internationally from that song than he is. I mean, don't get it twisted. He's getting a lot of attention, but just not as much as her. He's not getting the same features that she's getting. He's not getting the same attention that she's getting. So I felt like, was he doing that to kind of mark his territory and say, I'm the one that put her on, or that she got there through me in a sexual way? But I say all this to say that women don't need to sleep with men to have a man to become successful, right? And putting more investment in female, and I think especially Nigerian men need to let go of that ideology, because you're going to limit the potential of Afrobeats. And the way that the international audience immediately consumed and supported Thames instantly kind of just shows that, like, stop dimming women's lights. Stop it. It's a cultural thing that's done, I think, in Nigeria for sure, maybe West Africa. I'm not sure about West Africa. But stop doing it, because it's going to hurt you. And ultimately, if somebody is a winner, they're going to win. Winners are going to win. So stop trying to dim women's lights to prop yourself up or whatever. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me on my thoughts on, Afrobeats female artists? What are your thoughts on this subject matter? What are your thoughts about African men, specifically Nigerian men, dimming women's lights and preventing them from becoming successful? And yes, I think that is no, I won't say small, but that is a component to why Afrobeats female artists were ignored. That's certainly a component to it, but it's not the full extent of it, which I explained the whole extent of it earlier. But let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. My name is Kenim, and I'll see you next time. All right, see you. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. All right. Peace. End stream.